And Barb, you'll have to a approve that, I think. Oh, good. All right. So, my name is Amy Lee Bell. I'm over here in the one of your screens, with the pink behind me. I'm the owner of Crescenza Studio, and today we are going to host Barb Trombley. She's going to talk to us about the power of repetition. We're going to try to have authors and illustrators come in and talk to students and other authors and illustrators just about craft or have a Q&A once in a while. We actually have three of them this month. So Barb is our first one. We have a couple more coming up, one on the 22nd and one on the 29th. So if you guys are interested in seeing any more of these, you can go to, I'll pop it in the chat once Barb starts talking. I'll pop the link in the chat that anyone can go visit that if they want to. So I met Barb at Faith Forward Writers Retreat, as I think it was called back then, in, I don't know, 2023, I think. And I've read two or three of Barb's books since then, and I very much enjoyed them. And Barb has come to talk to our students once before. And so I've invited her back this morning. And Barb, I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to you. So I stop
Okay.
rambling over here.
Sounds good. Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome.
Um, this talk is geared towards writers of young adult fiction, and I know that some of you probably are not that type of an author, but I hope there's things in here that you can all glean from anyway, nonetheless. Um, the power of repetition in good fiction is often underestimated or it's dismissed. And we know that to memorize facts and poems, we have to repeat things over and over again. But it's also important in fiction more than we realize that it is. And this morning, we're going to discuss why new writers don't use repetition, why they should, and how to do it. So, first of all, let's brainstorm a little bit. What are some reasons why we avoid using repetition?
Maybe to avoid sounding too redundant.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, that we don't want people to think we're doing it on accident.
Yes, we don't want to bore the reader. And I think we've all read books where they keep telling you the same thing. Like, I already know he has brown eyes and I don't care. So don't keep telling me. I mean, I talk back to the book sometimes, which is a little odd, I guess, but maybe you guys do too. Um, why else is it a reason that we avoid repetition?
We've been taught not to.
Yeah, we don't want to give things away. Um, and you like to think that the author that you have enough intelligence to hold two ideas for more than one page and that you don't need to be kept reminding of things. And it's irritating, but I think what we've got to realize though is that we as authors are really, really invested in our books. We know every jot and tittle of our books. We know why the main character sneezed. We know who his brothers are. We know who his second cousins are. We know everything about him. But the reader, this is their first encounter with your story. So they don't remember every little detail. Um, and think about people you know. I mean, maybe you know that somebody's mother died of cancer back in 1982, but you kind of forgot. And so it doesn't hurt to have it brought up into your mind again. And it's the same with your books too, that the readers are not as invested in the story yet as you are. Any other reasons why we don't like to use repetition?
Well, we don't want to bore them. You feel like if you've already said that, I mean, like you said earlier too, that I already know that. So, um, you don't want to, you want to give them new information. You feel like you should always give them new information.
Yeah, that's good, Debbie. Um, the thing we have to remember as when we're working with this is there's a difference between being redundant in using repetition. And we do not want to be redundant. But we don't want to either throw the baby away with the bathwater and be afraid of ever repeating ourselves because um, we don't want to bore them. So we're going to talk a little bit about why we need to use repetition now. And I think we'll start out by talking about how repetition can give you a sense of place. Like if I'd want to have the readers know that it's a sunny day, and that's important to the story because it's going to kind of reflect the character's mental state. I don't want to keep saying it was a sunny day, but I can get that idea across using different words.
Mhm.
Like I might say the sun warmed her skin, or there wasn't a cloud in the sky, keeping the idea, repeating the idea without being redundant with the words. Let's try that with this phrase, the woods were dark. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to just kind of think about how else could you tell the reader that the woods are dark without saying the woods are dark. And yes, I am watching my clock, and that is 30 seconds. So, what else could we say besides the woods are dark?
She couldn't see the path.
I
Maybe
said
you
the
could,
Oh,
depending on, I guess, the story or how you want to write it, you could say something like, I could hardly see the next tree I was going to run into, type of thing.
No.
yeah.
I said the moon shone high above the trees.
So that's one way to be repetitious is to change your words up a little bit, but keep the same idea flowing, and then it isn't quite as totally repetitious.
Mhm.
Another way we can use repetition is it's a gateway to humor, a running gag. For example, I'm going to use a TV show as an example. Andy Griffith, we have to laugh at his deputy Barney because whenever Barney felt bad, well, quite often he felt bad about something about being sensitive or he doesn't want people to wear his hats, he'll say, My mother was the same way. And then Andy would say, I remember that about your mother. And so it almost got to be whenever he would say, um, I have a sensitive stomach. And then he'd say, My mother was the same way. Then Andy would always say to him, or we would actually just say to the TV, because my husband and I have a problem of watching Andy Griffith probably too much, but we'd say to the TV, his mother was the same way. And we'd laugh. So there's little, if it just happened once, it doesn't sink in and it isn't funny. But if it's a repeating joke, I mean, then it's funny.
Mhm.
I don't know if anybody else can think of an example that's probably better than Barney Fife.
It's just you feel like you're in on it. You feel like you're in on an inside joke because you know it's coming.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So another way to use repetition is it helps build characterization. If a person acts a certain way more than once, then that kind of builds, we get to know what they're like. In Little House on the Prairie, Ma always comes up with these little pithy statements, all's well that ends well. And we know she's going to come up with something like that. Um, I can't think of any more right now, but you're probably going to think of other ones that she
Yeah,
might
for
say
sure.
like that. Or if a person has a tick or something that they keep doing, that becomes part of who they are. And if you just mention it once, then you either don't remember it or um, it doesn't seem like it's really part of who that person is.
Yeah, I read a book one time and it was a book series and the villain, they kept flashing back to his childhood and he was always taking insects apart and taking, crustaceans apart and things like that. And it was just like this really creepy, because he grows up to become a villain. It's just so creepy.
It's a little foreshadowing there, isn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, third way or fourth way, I'm not sure. I think we're on four. Um, repetition builds suspense. Maybe you mention a blue door at the end of the hall. Maybe you mention that later on in the story, somebody says, "Well, make sure you don't go behind that blue door because that's out of off limits."
Mhm.
And so then later on, the door is mentioned again, and then when maybe they hear scratching behind it or something. And later on, the main character is being chased down the hall, and the only place they can possibly do is to open the door and go through it. And so there's a suspense of, well, what's back there? Why shouldn't they go through it? And she has no choice but to. Um,
Mhm.
so repetition builds suspense. Another thing repetition does is it can set up a situation. Now, in the suspense piece, um, it was just deliberately laid out so to build a suspense, but we can also use it just to set up the situation. Here's why it's important. You arrive at your big reveal, like on page 300, and you say, the murderer was her brother. And the reader goes, what? She had a brother? Oh, that guy with the yellow hair, that was her brother? Um, you want them when they get to the reveal to say, "Oh, now I get it," and then they can kind of put all these little pieces together and see why the reader, um, why it made sense. And if you don't have any clues or any repetition, it doesn't necessarily all fit together. Um, Another example is in The Wizard of Oz. Probably everybody's seen that movie. I hope you have. We used to see it like every year in October, I think, when I was a kid, because it was on TV once a year. But anyway, in The Wizard of Oz, right at the very end, Dorothy throws a bucket of water to put out a fire, and she happens to hit the witch. And what happens to the witch? Guys, what happens to the witch when she throws water on her?
Melts.
What?
Doesn't she melt?
She melts, and she goes, I'm melting." But And then she just dissolves. But that specific vulnerability wasn't established earlier at all. And so all of a sudden, it just kind of came out of anywhere. And so the resolution was a stroke of luck. And if we would have had a little foreshadowing of that, it maybe would have been a little better. Or even like Glinda, the Good Witch, at the end, she tells Dorothy to go home. She just has to click her heels together 3 times and saying, "There's no place like home." And so she could have just told her that way at the beginning of the movie. And so at the end, she goes, "Well, you wouldn't have believed me." Well, I bet she would have. I don't know. You just don't want obvious plot holes that make somebody that saw this 50 years ago still go, "That was so stupid." Okay. Well, maybe it was a good idea because I do remember it 50 years later.
But you remember it because it was stupid.
Yeah, there you go. And we don't want people to remember our books because they were stupid, right?
Yeah, right.
Um, yeah, there's a lot of chance, and a lot of times they do that in TV shows or movies just to kind of get the story to the end. But we like our characters to have agency, that the end happened because of something that they did or that they knew or that they figured out, and that is why it was solved, not just because they randomly threw water on somebody and they happened to dissolve, because it's just the way it was.
Yeah, that
Okay.
reminds me of the movie Signs. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Signs, but it's something. I don't want to give it away for everyone, but it's something to do with water. Just kind of like the witch and that melts. But there is a little bit of agency because someone tells somebody to do something, and they have to put the clues together and figure out what to do in order for the water to work its magic.
The thing about that movie too, Amy, is those aliens were so wise and smart that they were able to figure out how to get to planet Earth, but they weren't wise enough not to choose a planet that was 70% water. Okay.
Exactly
Um,
right.
repetition also highlights importance. If something only happens once, it might not register with you. Um, for example, in Anne of Green Gables, if there's only one mention of Marilla's headaches, it would just pass over it, but they keep bringing them up. And so at the end, we are not shocked at the end to find out that the headaches were a precursor to her being in danger of going blind. You don't want to handle, I have to admit somebody, and I got to get my mouse down here. Here we go. We don't want to give them the answer on a platter, but you don't want it to come out of left field either. So let me give you an example from one of the books I've written. This is called Lizzie's Secret. Oh, it's backwards. Okay, that's all right. In Lizzie's Secret,
It's not
um,
backwards for us though.
Lizzie goes into a cabin and there's a beautiful teacup sitting on a shelf, and she notices that it's by itself on a shelf and that it seems important. But to the reader, it's just like, well, that's just another detail. But later on, the main character, Jean, she picks up the teacup and she runs her finger around the rim. So that's starting to make it seem maybe it is a little more important. So then at the end of the story, when something happens to her precious teacup, you realize the significance of it, that it was probably more important than just a random teacup getting hurt or whatever I want to say. Repeating conversations highlights their importance also. Um, you don't have to exactly change it word for word, but you can have it brought up more than once. So then the reader knows full well that there's something going on. Um, in one of my books, I had the main character had the same conversation, but using different words. And so we really knew that it was important, whatever this little girl is being asked not to do. And so then when she does do it, you realize that she probably going to get into trouble for it. I think we can all think of examples where tracks were not laid or were laid really, really well. It's really important in mysteries that you do that, I think. So you can see where the author wants you to go. Can anybody think of an example of tracks being laid or not laid properly?
Yeah, sometimes it happens really quickly. I was watching The Expanse with Jesse and Ian last year, and the main character was brushing his teeth. And that's not a scene you're going to show in The Expanse unless it's important for some reason. And so it's like they had never shown us anybody brushing their teeth. And so I said, well, that toothbrush is going to go through somebody's neck. And you can do it easier, and then it did, like, 30 seconds later it did. But you can do repetition. It almost seems easier on film because if they show you something, you know it's important. It's harder with books because you have so many words, and to focus on one thing several times so that without seeming like you are, so that
Mhm.
whenever it's like an aha moment later on, you're like, oh, I should have caught that. And then you feel like you're on the inside, well, if you do catch it, you really feel like you're on the inside. But
But then there's red herrings too, right? Where
that's
they
true.
throw them out there because they want to try to put you off a little bit.
True, especially with mystery. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Let's take a minute now and talk about how to use repetition. Um, when you are writing your books, and Daniel, you're what, over halfway done with your book right now?
I would
You're
say about half. So
at a good point now where when you're starting to bring things up that you can go back and say, oh gosh, I better foreshadow this a little bit. Um, Like, for example, in my book, when I decided that I was going to have something bad happen to this teacup, then I went back to my story and I said, well, I better mention it a couple of times so that the reader knows that this is important. So then you can just, as you're revising and working on it, you can um, plant a few seeds along the way, throw some breadcrumbs down. Um, a good way to do that is the rule of three. When you use the rule of three, well, we know that three is like a precious number, right? It's a magic number. It's the smallest number that creates a pattern. We have two to make the pattern, and three you can break it or you can continue it. My mom used to say that it takes three things to have a collection. If you have three of anything, you have a collection. So I have a collection of books, um, for example. Um, but the rule of three. Okay, so the first time, towards the beginning of the story, you just mention something in passing, and then later on, maybe the character notices it and sits on it a little bit, and then the third time is when it can be a twist or a pivot, like a spring. You pick up the spring, you squeeze it, and then number three, you let it go, and something happens. So when you're writing, just go back and make sure that if something's important that you've mentioned it at least twice before that, maybe, and that maybe is enough to get the point across. Another way to use the rule of three is to repeat words and then maybe change them. Like, I waited for him to come home. I waited for him to call. I waited until the candles burnt down to stubs and then I went to bed. The repeating of the I waited, I waited, I waited builds the emotion. I think there's a lot of these things we just do naturally. We don't even really think about the fact that we're using repetition. If you're a good reader, you probably don't even really notice it, but sometimes it's good to deliberately call attention to something so that you're more intentional in using it. Um, yeah, the rhythm of three is good. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. There's just a good cadence to repeating something like that. Yeah. You're revising your book. It's wonderful to realize you need to do a little foreshadowing earlier on, like I said. And sometimes all you need to do is add a line. And that way you can deepen your atmosphere. You can maybe throw in a little humor, build characterization, increase suspense, set up a situation, or maybe establish some motifs. Like one more example of that is in one of my books, the main character had a yellow legal pad, and she kept bringing up the yellow legal pad. She took a note. It was jotted scribbles and things like that. And not only was that like part of who she was, the person that's lugging around her legal pad, it also kind of gave us a feeling of what type of a person she was. She wanted to keep track of things. She wanted to be organized. She wasn't super techy because she wasn't taking notes on her phone, but she wanted to keep, as much as possible, things under control in her own little world. Yeah. Sometimes if you have somebody fail at something, have them fail one more time before they succeed. It's just the act of one repeating that makes it more powerful. So my caveat is don't overuse it. Once repetition has served its purpose, it's time to go. And I'm going to say that it's time for me to go now. But
Thank you so much, Barb.
yes,
Are you open to a little bit of Q&A or do you have to leave?
sure. I'm welcome if there are
Okay.
people
All
that
right.
want to.
Well, first of all, thank you so much. I really value that. I've never really heard anyone talk about the power of repetition before. I've heard, some people address foreshadowing. You see that sometimes, but not the way you did. And I was really interested to hear what you said about that. Will you hold up your other book too, Barb? Do you have Brenda's Motel next to you? That
I
is
don't.
okay.
I should, but I don't.
So Barb wrote a book called Brenda's Motel, and it is I mean, I know she's here. I probably should wait to praise her until she's gone, but it is like one of my, oh, there it is. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolute
but
favorite as far as characterization. And I felt like this woman was alive. I wanted to pray for her. to be honest, I wanted to pray for Barb's character because she just got into my head. And but I can't remember her. Oh, Brenda, right? That's her name. But anyway, yeah, Brenda's Motel. If you guys just want a really nice story, not nice the way like Anna Green Gables is nice, because Anna Green Gables is just like when I was a kid, I would like get up in my treehouse and read it, and everything was all her problems were just so on a childlike level. They weren't real problems. But Brenda's Motel, Brenda faces some real problems, but it is just a nice, nice read. I love it. So I just want to plug
Thank
that
you,
book.
Amy.
You're welcome. All right. Anybody have any questions for Barb, or you want to respond to anything she said about repetition or the power of three? I have some if nobody has some, but I want to be quiet because I always overtalk.
Well, I think I took notes actually, because I think that that is, as you were talking, Barb, I could, it was so practical, but yet so powerful because I thought, yeah, that's exactly what they do when that's exactly how it is. And that's exactly how the successful writers write. So it was just really good information to, as I mean, we notice it. We don't have words to say that's exactly what they're doing, but that's exactly what they're doing. So it was just really, it was very informative, and I'll be using that. So I
I
appreciate
appreciate
it.
that.
Hmm.
You've got some books out too, don't you, Debbie?
Do I have three kids books? So they're and one of them is it's funny because when I heard about your topic, Monday makes my tummy hurt is one of them, and it I just repeat the phrase every other page. Monday makes my tummy hurt. Monday, and then and then it sometimes makes my tummy hurt, and then it doesn't always make my tummy hurt. So then you kind of have to get out of that. But that's a different way of repeating. That was just that's like um how little kids really appreciate the exact words, but when you get into chapter books, it's a little bit different.
That's a super good example, though. Thank you.
It
Mm-hmm.
really It reminds me of Les Miserables. Sister Simplice was a nun in Les Miserables. I think she was a nun, and she had never told a lie. And when you're introduced to her, she had never told a lie, and she had even taken the name Simplice because it was like a martyr who died not telling a lie. And if she'd have just told the lie, she wouldn't have died. So she took the name Simplice. It was her outstanding characteristic to not tell a lie. And then later on in the book, she's helping Fontaine, and Fontaine is dying, and she's trying to make Fontaine feel better. So she doesn't tell a lie, but she also doesn't tell the full truth. She
Hmm.
withholds. But then later, when Jean Valjean is trying to escape for his life, and Javert is right at the door, Javert knocks on the door, Sister Simplice answers it, and he says, "Have you seen Jean Valjean?" And she says, "No." And it's just
Mm-hmm.
this, I mean, I have chills. I mean, it is this idea of repetition. And these are chapters and chapters apart. And these are like the only three times maybe that she appears in the book. I can't remember that for sure. In a book that's probably like thousands of pages long, but it's very powerful, very powerful. So when you said that, Debbie, about the tummy hurting, but it changes throughout the story.
Mm-hmm.
And then earlier you were saying that too, Barb, you would use different words, or that you said the rule of three, but you would change, you could twist on the third one. That's kind of what's so even not just children's authors, but Victor Hugo, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're in good company, huh, Deb?
Yeah, yeah. That's okay.
Debbie, what's your last name so we can look up your books?
Mine is Brown.
Brown. What's
Brown,
your
yeah.
book series?
Well, it's not a series. There are three. My next hope is to do a series. So I my very first one was just a book that I wrote for my dad. And so it really was just a little kid story that is just dedicated to my dad. It's called The Boy with a Funny Name. So that's kind of how it started. And then I started having grandkids. So I started thinking, well, what do I want to teach my grandchildren? So the next one is about Wally the worried walrus who worries about everything. And so he misses out on all kinds of things because he's afraid and doesn't do anything. And then the third one, Rachel, I know Barb, you had both my girls. Rachel every Monday had a tummy ache. So it was um in the story is my two girls, and those things actually happened, in the story. So they're kind of meant for my kids and my grandkids too. So but the next step is, I mean, I've done this. Now I would love to do like a 3-book series. I would love to do something like that. So I'm taking notes so I can
Yeah.
figure out how to do that.
Awesome. Awesome. Any more questions for Barb, or anything you want to say about the power of three? Or did I know that some of you are writers? Sue, I know that you're a writer. I've read your book about caring for cancer patients. Was it you that wrote that book, Sue?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yes. So far, I've just published nonfiction, but
Mhm.
in the future, I hope to do a fiction book. And this was just really great information. Thank you so much, Barb and Amy. I love using repetition, and I've always been told in the past to stay away from that. And I think it's a powerful thing. So this was very good for me to hear that it is okay to use repetition. And I appreciate your insight on different ways to use repetition that isn't quite so obvious, but still makes the point.
I want to thank you, Susan. I want to make the point too that when you are writing, you can use it, maybe overkill, use it. And then when you do your next or second, third or fourth drafts, you can always get rid of it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I mean, the slashing pen is easy
Yeah.
Yeah.
to use. So,
And I think today, people skim so much, they don't pay attention to detail like years ago when they were reading. There's just too many distractions and people are in a hurry. And I think repetition kind of helps with that too.
yeah, that's good. Especially if you put the book down, don't pick it up again for another few days.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
need to be reminded
Yeah.
what's happening.
Sure.
Yeah, I think one way I kind of do the repetition is like in my book I'm currently working on, I kind of have this area the character goes to, except in the beginning you don't go there as often, so pretty much whenever I mention it, I tried to do a fairly good description of how it looks because the reader probably forgot. But what was I going to say? I was going to say this. I guess I'm old-fashioned with reading because I do not really skim. I think the only time I ever skimmed in a book was when I was going over the genealogies in the Bible because it's long.
Good for you.
Yeah, I think so. Daniel's writing a book where it's, if you don't mind me sharing, Daniel, it's a pirate themed book, and they're going to later on in the book, just a little bit into the book, they go to a bar for the first time, and Daniel describes it fairly well. And then subsequent times when they go, he'll describe, instead of describing all the things he's already described, he'll pick some, your eyes go different places. You've already seen maybe the decoration. I mean, I'm just making this up, but you've already seen maybe this stuff up here. Well, your eye goes to this dark corner, or your eye goes to this table over here. And so he's keeping you set in the setting with, and he's being repetitions that he's continuing to describe, but he's not being redundant, so to speak.
Good. Yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions for Barb, or any responses?
I ordered your books today. I ordered my books the other day, Barb, and I'm going to get them today. So I'm so excited to read them.
No, I'd love to
I
hear
sent
your feedback on them.
I sent Jessie one of them. And so I know I talked to her yesterday and I told her I was going to get to see you today. So she's I can't remember which one. I think Little Lizzie book I think I sent to her. But I'm excited. I'm excited to get them today. I was hoping I'd have them before this, but I don't have them yet. So
Yeah, that'll
One of
be
them is an adult book, and the other is book for younger readers, but the
okay.
characters intermingle. So when
Oh,
when
that's
you read
fun.
one, you'll say, "Oh, there's Lizzie again," but she's
Oh,
not
that's
the main
fun.
character. So,
Okay.
but yeah.
So have you just written two or do you have three?
Well, I'm working on numbers 3 and 4,
Okay.
um, and I just need to get finished.
Yeah.
Get it
Yeah,
going. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Let us know when it's done because I want to read those too.
I have a link. If you guys go to www.crescenza.studio, and I put that in the chat, but I'm not sure everybody was here earlier. Let me just repop it into the chat. I have a link to Barb's author page on Amazon, and also to the notes that I took last time when she did this. So I'm not at home today, so I didn't get to take my notes like normal, but I'm gonna still rewatch the video and try to get some notes out. Um, so if you guys want to see the notes of, oh, last time she talked about a characterization. If you guys want to see her notes, you can go over here. Or if you want to see her author page on Amazon, you can go here as well. So yeah. All right. Well, I think if nobody else has anything they want to say, if you've been holding back because you're polite, me and my dad, we can just talk over each other because we always have so much in our heads. And sometimes we're not even paying attention to each other. We're just saying our thing. So I am the kind of person, I'm just going to jump in and say it. But if you are a polite person, and you've been holding back because you don't want to jump in there and cut us off, now is your time. I'm going to be quiet for I'm going to count to 10.
I just wanted to say real quick that the repetition thing is, as you've all said, can be really important in a story and in a book. And for me, I just wanted to say I'm like not clever enough to like seed it in as I go. But after you finish a chapter or after you finish a scene or like a section, then might be the time where you can go back and kind of seed it in there. That way you can seem clever to everyone else. But I thought that was a really good idea that I think someone had mentioned earlier, just to go back and put it in that way, and you're not disrupting your flow when you're writing to try to think, oh, I got to be clever and put that thing in there, but you can definitely put it in afterwards too. So, but thank you for the talk. That was really, really great, Barbara. Thank you.
You're welcome. That was a good reminder of that, because sometimes you don't even know you're going to need it until you get farther into. I mean, I didn't know that I was going to need my teacup to be re-mentioned until something happened to it. I was like, oh, well, then I better make it important. But thank goodness for computers and being able to go back and put things in easily. Yeah.
You don't have
Exactly.
to get out a typewriter.
Yeah.
I think I cut somebody off. No? Okay. Debbie, I just wanted to ask you, Debbie Milligan, I just wanted to ask you if you had anything you wanted to say. I haven't heard from you. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I want to give you
That's
time.
okay. I stayed muted. I'm in the cities right now and there's horrible street noise. So I just stayed muted. Yeah, I'm not really a writer, but I'm trying to become one. And Barb is a great inspiration for me. Um, she and I were friends way back in second grade and have remained friends. And I'm so thankful for her. And I love Brenda's Motel. I just gave another copy to someone this week.
It's a lovely book.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little advice. Debbie is in Milligan. I'm not sure how to say
Yeah,
it.
Milligan.
Okay. One thing I would advise is maybe if you want to, you don't have to. This is advice. Uh, what I kind of started with when I somewhat started my book career is maybe start with like short stories because you kind of get the feel for it, and then maybe try something a little bigger, but
Yeah.
you
That's a
can do
great idea.
whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
And Maggie, was there anything you wanted to say before we sign off?
No, I'm just here to listen.
Okay, good. That's fine too. All right. Well, thank you so much, Barb. This was so much fun, and I really feel like we all learned an awful lot, and we're very engaged with each other. That's so much fun for me. So, um, I guess I won't call for questions anymore. I do want to ask if anyone else has anything published. Sue, you wrote the cancer care. I can't remember the name of it. I read it, and my mother passed away from cancer between I met you last year. I read your book. My mother passed away from cancer, and then I don't know, are you going to be in Wisconsin again next week, Sue? I mean,
Yes,
Faith Forward?
I'll be at the Faith Forward
Okay.
Writers Retreat.
I'll
Yes.
see you there. And so for those of you who are in Wisconsin, there's a writers retreat coming up. I think it starts on the 14th and goes to the 16th. It's in Sparta, Wisconsin. It's called Faith Forward Writers Retreat. And you can find them on Facebook. They have a lot of posts. So if you have free time and you're in the area, I feel like a lot of people in here know Barb. So I feel like some of you are in Wisconsin. So um, just to plug that a little bit. And does anybody else in this group have a book out? Or oh, Sue, what's the name of your series? I forgot. Cocoon of Love?
Yes, I have two books in that series, Cocoon of Love for Cancer Caregivers and Cocoon of Love for Caregivers. And then last year I published Nudged, Moved by God.
Oh yeah, that's right. That one I did not get a chance to read yet. All right. Anybody else in this group that already has a book out? Caitlin or Debbie, you're getting a book out. Caitlin does not have one out yet. Daniel, you have written one, but you haven't published, and you're in the middle of another one, but you haven't published yet. Maggie wrote a book this year and sent it to me. Um, I'm not at home. It's laying on my desk. I'm not at home. Maggie, what was your main character's name? I can't remember.
Yes, since you eat it. A little girl
Edith.
named Edith.
That's right. That's right. So we have a lot of writers in this group. So I guess all of us are writers. So I haven't published a book either. Not really. It's a little self-help kind of things, but okay. Well, thank you so much. I guess I'll let everybody go unless you have one more thing to say. And then I want to retain Daniel because he's actually in my class. So
That's good. Thank you, Amy.
you're welcome. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Barb.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Let's see. I'm going to stop the recording, Daniel, and then I think I'm going to start it again.
Okay.